Hey there, Booksy. Welcome back to my channel. We are back for day 7 of hashtag DECAMORAMA. We are reading The Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio. And on day 7, Dioneo is king. And maybe for that reason, all the women in the 10 stories we're going to talk about next are cheating on their husbands. So stick around as we talk about those 10 stories. The first story is about Gianni, who is a rich, important man in the community, but his wife starts an affair with a man called Federico. Yeah, that name again. The wife is staying in a country house for the summer, so when her husband comes to visit, she puts up a sign for Federico to know not to come by. So this sign says come, this side says no. However, one night when she's preparing a special meal for Federico, her husband shows up unexpectedly. So she doesn't have time to change the sign, so she hides the special meal and tells the maid to take it to the garden. Then she serves her husband some gruel like that is all she was going to eat. All is well until later when wife and husband are in bed. Federico comes knocking. The wife pretends that it's the boogeyman, and that she and her husband sing a song that she says will exorcise the ghost, but it's really a message so Federico will know to go away. Next, we have a poor man who marries a beautiful woman, but because they're both poor, they both have to work very hard. Him as a mason, her spinning thread at home. However, she gets tired of this life and starts an affair with a young man who visits her during the day when her husband is at work. One day, however, her husband comes back home unexpectedly, not long after he left, and he finds the door bolted, and he knocks, but he congratulates himself for having such a faithful wife that she locks the door as soon as he leaves so no one can mess with her. When the wife hears him knocking, she hides her boyfriend in a barrel and goes to the door and starts quarreling with the husband, telling him she's tired of the poverty and why did he come home so soon when he should be out making money. And he says, no, I'm just here to sell the barrel, that barrel that's inside. And she says, what barrel? I'm going to sell a barrel for more than you're going to sell it for. In fact, there's a man inside right now who's going to buy a barrel. The boyfriend hears the conversation. He comes out, he buys the barrel without the husband ever suspecting a thing. Then we have a man who falls in love with a married woman who's also pregnant. He befriends her husband and is named godfather to the child. Then the man goes and becomes a friar, but his feelings for the woman haven't quenched, so eventually they begin an affair. One day, the woman and the friar are fooling around in her home. Baby is in the crib next to them. Husband comes home. She tells the husband that the child was sick and the friar is praying and casting spells on him. The lie delays the husband at the door, so the friar is able to get dressed and pretend like he healed the child. Then we have a man named Tofano who's so jealous of his wife for no reason, so she decides to give him something to really be jealous of, and she starts having an affair. Tofano likes to drink, so she plies him with wine, and when he's drunk and sleeping, she sneaks out of the house and goes to see her lover. One day he suspects that she's up to something, so he just pretends to be drunk, and when she sneaks out of the house, he locks the door and waits at the window for her. When she comes back and realizes he won't open the door, they have this whispered argument where she threatens to jump in the well so the neighbors will think he killed her in his drunken rage. She takes this big boulder and throws it down the well. When Tofano hears the big splash, he runs out of the house and she runs in, locks the door behind him. When he comes back home, she's sitting at the same window, and now they have this loud argument that the neighbors hear, and they blame Tofano for being drunk even though he wasn't. Then we have another man who is so jealous of his wife that he keeps her locked up in the house. However, she, being crafty, begins to communicate with her neighbor through the walls. One day, she begs her husband for permission to go to confession, but he's so jealous and eager to hear her secrets that he disguises himself as a priest. So when she's sitting at the confessional box, she recognizes him and tells him that she's been having this secret affair with a priest, that a priest visits her at night to sleep with her. So when they get home, she's in bed and she's asking the husband if he's not coming to bed, and he's like, nah, I'm going someplace, because he wants to set up watch at the door to see when the lover is going to sneak into the room. Meanwhile, while he's at the door, she has the neighbor sneak into the house through the roof, through the windows, and she's able to sneak this guy in while the husband is watching at the door. Story number 6 is about a married woman who's having an affair with 2 men, one that she loves and the other who is blackmailing her with the other affair. So she's not in a love triangle, she's in a love square. One day when her husband is away, she's entertaining the other man that she loves, whose name is Leonardo, when the blackmailer rides up on his horse. So she hides Leonardo in her room and allows the blackmailer to come in, and she starts fooling around with him. However, in the process, her husband comes home. So she tells the blackmailer to follow her lead. She tells him to draw his sword and pretend that he just barged into the house looking for someone. When the husband comes in, that's exactly what blackmailer does. He has his sword drawn and he's yelling out, "Where are you? Where are you?" So the husband believes. The blackmailer gets to leave. Then when the husband comes in, she says that before the blackmailer had come in, another man had run in seeking refuge and she hid him. And the husband believes. So the husband actually takes the man out and entertains him with dinner and then takes him home. Wow. In the next story, a rich man disguises himself as a servant so he can work in the house of a married woman that he's fallen in love with. One day he professes his love to the woman and she tells him to come to her bed that night when she's lying next to her husband. When he comes, she holds onto his hand. She grabs him and holds him in the dark. Then she wakes up her husband and tells the husband that the servant propositioned her and he's in the garden right now waiting for her. So he, husband, should dress himself like her wife and go to the garden and he'll be able to see for himself. When the husband leaves, she and the rich man turned servant have their way with each other. Then she tells the servant guy to go to the garden and pretend that it was the woman who propositioned him. Thereby, he'll be able to prove his loyalty to the master. Now the master thinks the servant is trustworthy and the lovers are able to continue their affair without him suspecting. The woman in this story is, of course, having an affair. So her trick is that when she's lying next to her husband, she ties a string to her toe, dangles the string through the window so that when her lover comes to visit her, he can yank on the string and she will know that he's outside so she can go to meet him. One night, her husband notices the string and takes it off his wife's toe and puts it onto his own toe. When the lover comes and yanks it, the husband wakes up, rushes out and starts to chase the man, but he doesn't catch him. Meanwhile, the woman wakes up and realizes that the husband must now know what she did, so she puts the maid in her bed and covers her up. So when the husband comes, he wants to take revenge. He beats the maid, he cuts off her hair, thinking that that is his wife. Then, when he leaves to go get witnesses, the wife switches places again with the maid so that when the husband comes back, she can pretend that it didn't happen. Next, we have a woman who is so desperate to start an affair with her husband's assistant, but the young man thinks that maybe this is a test. So he comes up with some ridiculous ways for the wife to prove that she's not just trying to test him. Number one is she has to kill her husband's favorite bird. Wife, no problem. She takes the bird, she throws it against the wall and kills it. Says, well, listen, you were paying too much attention to that bird anyway. Next, she has to pull out some of the husband's beard. She goes and she yanks out some of his beard and sends it to a guy, no problem. Next is to remove one of the husband's teeth. She comes up with this ridiculous story where he thinks that he has bad breath and he allows her to take out a tooth that she told him is rotten. And she sends it to the guy. The guy says, oh, okay, no problem. I love you, right? And the final story, as always, is told by Dioneo, who, although he is king today and he came up with the theme, he breaks tradition and tells us the backstory to a tale recounted earlier. The story of the friar who was sleeping with the mother of his godchild. Well, this is about the friar and one of his friends who are so committed to each other that they do everything together. And they make a pact that when the first one dies, he will come back if he can and tell the one that's still alive what the afterlife is like. However, while they're busy being devout, they both fall in love with the same woman, Monarita, the mother of the friar's godson. So the friar dies first, and he keeps his word and appears to his friend, I guess in a dream. And the friend asks, well, what kind of punishment did you get for sleeping with your godchild's mother? And the friar says, well, in the afterlife, they don't care about that, so there's no punishment. And the friend who's still alive knows now that he can pursue the woman without consequence. Dioneo, he does it every time. And that's it. That is the 10 stories that make up day 7 of the Decameron. Join me tomorrow where we will go through the next 10 stories. I hope you'll come back. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.